Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Instagram. Starting a little bit later today than normal because I had to get a haircut this morning. But we're back. I think last week we missed, I think because I didn't have a voice, if I remember correctly. I think that's why I was out last week. So back to normal this week. Super exciting day today because tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern time, our disc golf reality series is launching. Episode 1 happens tonight, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Let me actually flip. See, look at the haircut, huh? Fresh cut. Flip the hat around so that I have better lighting. Tonight, 5 p.m. Eastern time, is the launch of episode 1 of the reality series, which I'm super excited about. And then this weekend, disc release wise, first off, shout out, thank all of you. The Hunterbird we released last week sold out over the weekend, so I'm sure we will get more of these in stock at some point. But for right now, the only place that has any left is our in-person store. There's a handful of them. So these sold out this weekend, but this upcoming weekend on Friday, we're going to have some Conman Shamans restocking, which is going to be exciting. We're going to have the Robbie C. Wizard restock. This is the first time the Robbie C. Wizard is going to have Robbie C's like actual logo on it instead of the Dennis the Duck Wizard stamp. So that's really exciting. And then the really cool stuff that's dropping this weekend is we were able to get our hands on some very sick stuff that Discraft released at USDGC, and we were able to bring some of that home. Including some triple foil crystal impacts, some triple foil, I think it's like Z metallic-y kind of raptors. We've got some Big B stamped cicadas. We've got all kinds of like white ESP glow PM line stuff. We've got some like crystal or Z metal flake Athenas, all kinds of stuff. So that's going to be dropping on Friday alongside the restocks of the Conman Shaman and the Robbie C. Wizard. And I'm sure there's a few other things that I'm not thinking of right now, but it's going to be a really exciting weekend on the site. Another thing, we sold out last week or 2 weeks ago of this month's subscription box. But since there's always like cancellations or different stuff like that, we actually have a few more that are on the site. Let me actually make sure. I think I fixed the inventory this morning, so they're ready for you guys. But this month, yeah, so there's still a few more available. So if you're interested in picking one of those up, the subscription box this month is like October spooky theme. So it's kind of like alien abduction type theme. It includes the second release ever, the first ever retail release. And I think there's only one more release of this disc planned this year, and it's going to be towards the end of the year, which is the ET2 from Trash Panda. And you also get this sick patch that glows in the dark. It says Foundation Box Subscriber, and then it glows in the dark, which is really, really cool. So if you want to pick that up, this month's subscription box is unreal. Next month, we actually are just finalizing the secretive part of next month's today. So we'll officially have those discs in hand probably in like a week or two, which is really exciting for next month's box. So you're not going to miss out on all of that stuff. Very, 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 very cool stuff. So actually, Brad just let me know that the releases are updated in Asana. So ones that I missed, it looks like the new Innova Glow and the Evelina Swirly Star Destroyers. They both dropped, I think, at USDGC. We're going to have those. Looks like we got some Year of the Dragon stamped House of Disc stuff. Don't really know what that is, but Discraft, it looks like we have the USDGC stuff and some new TI Zone GTs, Fly Die Kratos, Big Z Swarm. And then we also have some of the new Innova Glow stuff, Leopard Strike, Mako 3 Turn, Valk. So a lot of cool stuff hitting the site this weekend is basically what that all means. So I figured before I answer a bunch of questions, I know I've seen some questions coming in, so I'll get to those in a second. But I was thinking through because Dynamic Discs just reposted one of their like classic commercials they did years ago, and I was just thinking through the Dynamic Discs brand and kind of the brand perception that I've felt, and then I feel like has kind of been I've felt throughout the industry as well. Um, and I wanted to kind of like just think through that and why I think dynamics perceived the way they are, if that makes sense. What is this? Oh, okay, it's sideways. I was perceiving, you can't see it on Instagram, but on here I was perceiving this as like two vertical columns, and then I looked over and I was like, this is just a sheet of paper with one. Never mind. It was playing mental tricks on me. But what I thought was interesting is you can probably find really old episodes of Grip Locked where I used to talk about how more companies should be like dynamic discs. Because if I remember correctly, when we started Foundation and before that, Dynamic was one of the companies that they didn't have a premier player. At that time, Ricky Wysocki was with Latitude 64, and Dynamic had several like role-playing players. Like they had some like a solid, okay team. I think Zach Melton was on their team at that time, Eric Oakley, but no one that was like going out and winning week in and week out, right? But they were able to not only stay relevant, but they were actually like one of the like trendy cool brands, at least in my mind, and I think in a lot of people's minds back then. And the way they were able to do that was the trio of Robert McCall, Bobby Brown, who went by Cool Daddy Slick Breeze, and Eric McCabe. And what they were able to do was basically they didn't need pros to move plastic because they were making, like, Will It Heiser was a series they did back then that somewhat inspired that, alongside Braille Skateboarding, inspired our, like, Throw Everything series when we first started. The Weekly Warehouse videos I still do were fully inspired from Bobby's, I don't know what he called them, but basically they were weekly warehouse updates. He would ride around on a hoverboard and, like, update you on what was new in the Dynamic Discs warehouse. And their marketing team, they were the faces of the brand, right? They had the Disc Golf Answer Man podcast that went through a few different iterations, but like back then, it felt very much like family, more or less. You know what I'm saying? Like it felt like you were relating to the team member, not the player, and so it had a grip on especially newer players. Like there were so many people that were all like Team Trilogy stuff, like all throwing only Trilogy and stuff like that. And I think a big part of it was the way they approached marketing. And when it really started to shift for me was, and I didn't really put two and two together until I started thinking back when they posted that commercial yesterday of the You Can't Triple Stamp, Double Stamp commercial. It like brought all those memories back, and I was like, dang, what the heck happened, right, to Dynamic? And when it really started to shift for me was when Robert McCall left, and then shortly after Bobby left. And in the process, they had brought on Anthony from Disc Golf Weekly, who I absolutely loved, and also Danny Lindahl, I think left on his own a little bit ago, and then Anthony was just laid off from Dynamic. But I think what they did a great job creating media, but I don't think they were ever able to fill the shoes of the like Robert McCall, Bobby Brown, like feel. And I think that is when like they started shifting towards player focus, and that's when it kind of lost me, and I think that's kind of when it lost a lot of people. And then when it really it kind of turned corporate, obviously with House of Discs, and then you had Jeremy Rusko stepping kind of away from Dynamic into a House of Disc role. And I think that's kind of where it all went down a little bit. But it was just interesting to me to look back on that because like all of those moves made sense at the time. But then when I look back over the whole scope, it's like, man, if they were been able to keep that like media personality focus on their marketing side, I wonder what the perception would have been. Like if when Robert McCall left, you know, Anthony and Danny would have been able to fill that shoe with Bobby a little bit more, or if the Disc Golf Answer Man could have lived on past it and stuff like that. I wonder what could have happened. But I don't know. I was thinking back, and it was just fascinating to me because it went from, I used to think every disc golf manufacturer should be looking at what Dynamic Disc is doing and figuring out how they can do it, to Dynamic Disc going away from what worked themselves. And now we see obviously the House of Disc layoffs, and they're cutting prices to try to raise sales, and they're doing all these flash sales and stuff like that because I think they have a very bloated player payroll that they're trying to make. And it's just, I don't know, it's very interesting to me. But okay, let's answer some questions. Shay Stevens said, can you talk about the revival of Supreme Flight? Seems like the fourth rebirth of that brand. Yeah. Supreme Flight, if you don't know, it just got reannounced under Ledgestone now, I believe. But it originally was John Tompkins, Paul's like best friend, and one of his caddy for like Worlds and stuff like that. He started Supreme Flight way back, probably in, I don't even know, 2012, 2013, 2014, somewhere in that range. And then we actually bought Supreme Flight out in 2020. Right before Brody bought in, or around the time Brody bought in, we bought Supreme Flight out and kind of brought it back. And it was interesting. We had the site launched, and we had Foundation and Supreme Flight. We were trying to figure out how both of them could live together because Paul really wanted Supreme Flight to live on, but obviously we weren't really tied to it. And we sold all the discs out when we signed Brody. We sold every disc we had in inventory out, including all the Supreme Flight stuff for this Brody live stream signing thing. It was awesome. And after that, we just never relaunched the Supreme Flight website. We kept the Supreme Flight brand alive for maybe another year. We did a few like hoodies and a few disc runs. But at the end of the day, we were more passionate about the Foundation brand. And over time, the Foundation brand grew bigger than the Supreme Flight brand. And so come 2021 or so, we made the move to just kind of kill off the Supreme Flight brand, just let it die off. And then when Paul left, when he was focusing on Paul and Beth Foundation, all that stuff, when he left the company, in the process of him leaving, he asked like, hey, do we have any plans for Supreme Flight brand? What's the deal with that? And we were like, no, like we're not doing anything with it. We want to put all of our time, energy, and focus into the Foundation brand. We didn't really see the value in the Supreme Flight brand at that time. And so Paul was like, do you care if I take it? And so we were like, no. So in part of the negotiation process of him leaving, he took Supreme Flight with him. And it seems like it must be coming back in some way, shape, or form under Ledgestone. So I think it'll be really cool for players who are in the sport. Like when I got into the sport, I used to rock a Supreme Flight wristband when I wanted to support Tompkins in them back in the day. And so I think it's cool for those players. I think there will be a education process for newer players that have gotten into the sport since then. Because Supreme Flight just doesn't really mean anything anymore. Because like I said, it's been dead for 4 years, and it was dead for 2 or 3 years before we brought it back the first time. And even that time, we had to re-educate people back in 2020. So it'll be interesting to watch. But yeah, it seems like it seems also that it's going to be from that initial post, kind of like just an apparel thing under Ledgestone, which is not what I expected it to be, but it's interesting for sure. Adam said, wanting to hear your opinion about disc golf being pay to watch. Is it weird that disc golf fans expect it to be free? I feel like all sports are pay to watch. It's a very interesting predicament that disc golf's in, because if we ever want to get out of pay to watch, we have to increase the viewership numbers by such a large number that we could sell it to advertisers for more, or ESPN Plus or something would be interested, right? But to get to that level, we have to increase the viewers by a lot. But it seems like the only thing that can increase the viewers by a lot is making it free. So it's a really catch-22. I wish it was free, but I fully understand why it's not free. Because for instance, right, if you want to watch every single football game, of course, you got to pay for the NFL Sunday Pass, or if you're a college football fan, you got to pay for ESPN Plus or something, right? But really, other than the NFL Sunday Pass, if I pay for ESPN Plus, which I do, as a Liberty fan living in Lynchburg, I can watch every Liberty football game, every Liberty basketball game. I can watch, whenever, pretty much any sport I want to watch, I can turn on ESPN Plus, and if the game's not on the mainstream TV, I can watch it on ESPN Plus. So I get a lot more value, a lot more bang for my buck. I think where it's tough with Disc Golf Network is you just have the Disc Golf Pro Tour on there. They try to fill in this extra stuff, but people just aren't that interested in the outside of disc golf coverage stuff that's on there. So I think that's kind of where they're struggling. Is it's just a weird sell, I think, at the end of the day. But what's tough is the only way we have live is this subscription model, because there's not a big enough viewership base to bring in the type of revenue that the subscription model does. Because I mean, last they published, it was like 40-some thousand people or something like that were subscribed to Disc Golf Network, which means they're paying subscribers to Disc Golf Network. And but we know that many people don't watch live every week. That many people are paying it. So like that has now gotten live coverage to where it is. But the problem is live coverage isn't good enough to sell to ESPN Plus, or ESPN Plus isn't interested or whatever. And also it's not viewed enough to sell it to like mainstream outside of disc golf sponsors for advertising. So they can't monetize at the same level. Like they're making millions. I say making millions, top line revenue from the Disc Golf Network the way it is currently. So for it to get to free, they would have to be able to bring in that same level of money through advertising alone, which just isn't going to happen right now. So it's weird. I don't see it changing anytime soon or ever. I think the only way it would change is if there was a competitor that came in and their live coverage was free and comparable somehow, which I think is a really big ask. But I think if someone were to do that, then the Disc Golf Network kind of be forced to figure out what they're going to do. But yeah. But I mean, as far as like normal sports, I'm a relatively big sports fan, but like I pay for YouTube TV and I can watch most sports I care about. Like most of the big college football games I can watch. NFL I don't care enough about to pay for anything extra, but YouTube TV has NFL Network, so I can like watch highlights, and then whatever's the big game of the week you can typically find. I have Amazon Prime by nature, so I just get the Thursday night football game. College basketball, when it rolls around, I have the ACC network, and I'm a Duke fan, so they're typically on some type of broadcast somewhere that's easy to find. And then when March Madness rolls around, you can watch that really easily. I have the Golf Channel because of YouTube TV. So like, I think that's what's tough is like I pay to watch sports, but I pay for YouTube TV, and it gives me all the sports. Disc Golf Network's like an extra thing, if that makes sense. So it'd be like if UFC fights, right? You have to buy each weekend. That's kind of the closest thing. But it's still like they're on ESPN Plus, and I can watch all the lower cards. I never pay for a fight. I don't care about UFC that much. But it would be like if the UFC spun off and like the only way you watched any fighting is if you paid for the UFC network. That would be kind of what Disc Golf Network is sitting in currently. So it's definitely interesting. Alex Bauer says, question for you. What's one of your favorite distance drivers? The Destroyer is by far my favorite distance driver, for sure. Hayden James says, I think having to pay extra for certain events is stupid. The tough part is that the Disc Golf Network looks bad for that. But from my understanding of the situations, that's the only way you'll be able to watch it on Disc Golf Network, because I think the two events that it happens with, right, USDGC and European Open, I believe those are the only two. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Those are both privately owned events that happen to be majors. So like the European Open has always been ran by Discmania. I don't know if they have a separate, ownership of that event now. But like, so they want to make money off of the broadcasting rights to that event. So from my understanding is they basically have to kind of monetize through the Pro Tour, because they have the power to say, no, we're going to use, USDGC did this a few years ago. They used like Fulcrum Media, and it was its own pay-per-view thing. So I think that's kind of why it's tough, is I don't think that's a Disc Golf Network decision. I think the Disc Golf Network's hands are tied a little bit, and it's unfortunate because they're the ones that are going to get the bad press for a decision that they're being forced to make. That's my understanding of it. I could have a misunderstanding on some of that, but I don't think the Disc Golf Network would just choose to make USDGC be more exclusive and you have to pay more just to put more money in their pocket, because then it's like less people are going to watch it now, which makes the advertising on it less valuable. When like if USDGC was readily available typically, where Jomez is going to be coming out the next day, Disc Golf Network is going to have it normally live, it would probably be their most watched event all year. But instead, I think Jomez coverage comes out in like 2 days for it or something like that. Like it still hasn't come out. Everyone's for that tournament's done. A whole another tournament's happened. So yeah. Hayden James, they said they could work on advertisements while decreasing our costs accordingly. Well, the tough part is, in my opinion, from the outside looking in, because we don't advertise with the Pro Tour currently, the tough part is I don't think their advertising is correctly priced now. I think it's already overpriced for what people are getting, the level of attention people get. So the problem is the only way to that would work, Hayden, is they would have to keep raising the advertising cost while decreasing the subscription cost to offset that. But then advertisers, who are mainly disc golf companies, are going to keep getting squeezed, and the disc golf economy is obviously in a slow-up phase, where it's kind of readjusting itself after the COVID boom. And so money's tighter and tighter for disc golf companies. So what they could end up doing is lower the prices of subscription, try to raise the advertising prices, but then the advertisers pull out, and now they're stuck where the only way they're going to get that money back as this is coming down is to re-raise subscription prices, which you're never going to look like the good person there. So It's the man's G said, what's your opinion on the new Pro Tour finale system? I hate it. I like the previous one because it forced you to shoot lights out every day. I'm in complete disagreement with you. I love the new one because it forces you to play good all season. Why I hated the previous one was you essentially had this bracket format, right? And you had players who were playing on Thursday, Friday, and then you had players who'd played better than them all season coming in cold on Saturday, because originally, they changed this to last year, but originally you couldn't even practice Thursday and Friday because there was a tournament going on. So you couldn't even practice the course. So then you had players who were getting red hot, had a lot of momentum. Nerves are already out of the way because they started on Thursday. And then you had the best players in the world who deserved the advantage coming in cold on Saturday and having to beat a red-hot player who's warmed up for 2 days. And so what we saw is players who were not deserving of the title tour champion based on their performance all season long, winning it. I hated that because essentially the tour championship, the tour finale, is like the bonus structure for the year. Like Gannon Buhr, unless it's from a sponsor, like didn't get something for winning 8 times on tour and being, the number one player coming into the weekend. He didn't get anything just for doing that. He had to go to play the tour championship for a chance to win, back then $40,000, this year $35,000 of that. So I love the new format because it says, hey, Gannon, Ricky, y'all played the best all season, so we're going to give you the best odds to win this weekend because you earned it all season long. Everyone else, if you want to be upset that Gannon has 10 strokes on you, don't let him beat you in the entire field 8 times all season, and then you can have more strokes. And then it still creates electricity because the best players are all bunched at the top. And, yes, Gannon had 10 strokes on 33rd, which basically guarantees the 33rd best player isn't going to win, but he only had 1 stroke on Ricky. So, like, between him and Ricky, they're basically neck and neck. It just basically helped guarantee the players who had the best season have the best odds of winning the tour championship, which is exactly how it should be. So I also liked it a lot more than last year. They did like the cut thing in the first 2 rounds. You had a stroke advantage, and then it got wiped, and you were reset. I hated that. This is the way to do it. It's how golf does it with the FedEx Cup. I do think that there should be, I don't know if the title should be tour champion, because like there is a chance this year Missy Gannon and Gannon both won, so it worked out perfect. But there is a chance of like if Ricky had won, then Gannon would have had all that work all year for nothing. Like that, obviously I wouldn't have liked as much. But so I don't know if the title should be tour champion, but it is what it is. Scott Cash says, so do you not like March Madness? I love March Madness. It's completely different. March Madness, you have the 1 seed facing off directly against the 16 seed in round 1. The 1 seed has just as much chance of getting momentum, and they have a big advantage. And it would be like if March Madness were the 1 seed didn't play until the Elite 8, and they weren't allowed to, they could like sparingly practice, right? And then you had teams playing on the week leading in. So you had teams going Thursday, Friday, coming in, and then this 1 seed is now having to meet a red hot, all types of momentum, like 6 seed to start. that is essentially the old Tour Championship format. That didn't make any sense. So like if you wanted to go a bracket format, then you basically would have to put Gannon Buhr head to head up against whoever came in 32nd and have them do match play or something. But it's way more electric to just play 4 rounds of disc golf, what we've done all year, and the advantages of strokes. There you go. Boom. Solved. David said, what happened to Joe Henderson on the preview show? She had just stuff going on in life that made her life too busy and too hectic where she couldn't put the time in that she wanted to do the FPO preview side. And so she stepped away. But we would love to have her back if she was interested in coming back again next year. So. Flight Geist DGC, should the Disc Golf Pro Tour be doing more with celebrity players, people like Bert Kreischer, Bill Nye, who come in as guest commentators or color commentators? I don't think it'd be a good idea to get Bert Kreischer with a mic on him for the Disc Golf Network, but I do think that they definitely should be using like whatever they can, get them out to more events, do more like they've had him out before, like Bert Kreischer did. I forget exactly what he did, but he did some type of disc golf thing. But they definitely like a video with him on Jomez. That seems like a pretty no-brainer. Similar to Bill Nye. They definitely should have them out to more stuff if possible, but it's also like for a lot of those people, it's just really easy. It's really hard for the Disc Golf Network to pay what they would be worth for them to come to a tournament to post about it the whole time. Especially when a lot of times you'd be competing with people like the NFL wanting them to come to a game or whatever. But they definitely do. They used to do the like celebrity pro-am. The problem with that was they just the word celebrity was very loosely thrown around, we'll say. Mainly because like if you're an average person, you hadn't heard of basically anyone that was in the celebrity pro-am. So I don't hate the idea of doing a celebrity pro-am again where you can pair people up, but I think you had to be very selective of like make sure we actually got people have heard of out here. So I like the idea of it, but yeah. Eric says, hello, Hunter. Have you addressed the criticism from the comments on the donut video yet? No. It is what it is. I must say I was a little confused by them all a little bit, as was everyone else in the office, mainly because I don't know if it just came across different on the video than what actually happened out there, or if the idea of the video was not, like, didn't come across clearly. But I mean, at the end of the day, Trevor ate 9 donuts, I ate 8 donuts, Connor ate 8 donuts, and I hit the putt to win. I'm sorry for how I came across, but it's tough. I don't really know how I came across because I haven't watched the video back yet. But this is definitely the hardest I've ever been drug in the comment section, for sure. Not even close. And typically what's funny is I've definitely had other moments where I'm like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that, or I regret how I acted, whatever. And those moments go under the radar a lot more than whatever I did that really ticked people off in this donut video. But yeah, because I came in and said something to like them of like, did you guys see this thing? And everyone was like, kind of baffled a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's also our average like to dislike ratio is like 98% on Foundation's channel. I think that one has 80-some%. Like I got absolutely dominated. So yeah, I haven't really addressed them because I don't really know what to say, to be honest with you. I think that something didn't come across the way it actually happened, or didn't come across clearly through the video. And then once it started, it just was, it's out of control. It's gone. Crazy. Didi Michandudu, what a name, said, can just anybody put on a major? Does the PDGA have to approve a major event? So at this point, the PDGA is the one kind of put it on new majors. But is basically the problem is the European Open and USDGC have kind of been grandfathered in, and they were ran by outside entities. I mean, U.S. Disc Golf owns the United States Disc Golf Championship. And so, but you see the PDGA take a stand against them a little bit by not letting Throw Pink be a major, even though it's run consistently better than the U.S. Women's for the FPO field. And a lot of players feel like it's more of a major than U.S. Women's. So it's definitely an interesting situation they find themselves in. And what also is tough is the two consistently best run majors by far year in and year out are the two that aren't owned by the PDGA. I used to hate that. I used to be like, the PDGA has to own all the majors. They need to, nip it in the bud. What are they doing? And now as I've grown and looked at it from a more just like what's going on behind the scenes, I think I'm in full disagreement with my old self. I think that the disc golf needs the European Open organizers and needs the USDGC organizers. And I would love for the PDGA to give up control of Worlds so that Worlds could have a really high standard. Because like a Worlds, selfishly, obviously, this was Lynchburg, but Nate Heinold and his team put on a phenomenal World Championship this year. But it shouldn't be based on what team is running Worlds, whether Worlds is phenomenal or not. Like, Worlds should be the highest standard in the sport. And what happens is when you have basically a new team running this major every year, then when it's a team like Emporia, where they've done it a bunch, yeah, they're going to have a great one. When you have a Nate Heinold, where he's done it a bunch, yeah, he's going to put on a great one. But when you have a tournament director that this is their first major, first Worlds, you can try to help them, right? But like the local community, it's their first time having it come in. Like it's not going to be as good as it could be. Versus USDGC now has like 26 years of the same tournament at the same venue, one-upping themselves every year. And what you have is, like, if you've ever been to USDGC, if like I've been to a lot of disc golf events, okay, USDGC stands head and shoulders above every other event I've been to. I haven't been to the European Open or any events in Europe, so I can't speak to those. But as far as Pro Tour events, I mean, I think players would agree with that. Most fans that have ever been on the grounds at USDGC would agree with that. It is the standard we should all be held to. Obviously, course design, it being on a college campus, you can say what you want about that, but I'm saying the way the event is run, how spectators are treated, how players are treated, so on and so forth. But the reason is you've had the same team running it for 26 years. So I disagree with my previous self. I love that the U.S. Disc Golf owns that major because it at least has a standard that it has to be one-upped every year. So, all right, we'll take a few more questions, and then we'll wrap up here. Yeah, Hunter Kyle, this is how I was interpreting most of the comments, which I thought was very funny. So he said, for me, Connor and Trevor were mostly attempting to throw good shots in the spirit of the game, whereas there was a lot of moments when you were gaming the rules with intentionally avoid donuts. So this is where the miscommunication or misunderstanding between the comment section and us was. Because there was no gaming of the rules. Like, if you threw the best shot, you ate a donut. That was the only rule. So multiple times you saw both of them lay up. But I think they just didn't talk strategy to the camera or something maybe. And like you also several times saw them like, I don't really care. I just want to throw a good shot. I'll eat a donut if I had to eat a donut early in the video. Whereas I was like, I don't want to get stuck eating. Because we had done the math before. And there was a very solid chance if someone played really well that someone could have eaten 13 or 14 donuts. So I was going into that like, I'm not eating 14 donuts. I'll gladly eat 7, 8, whatever. I'm not eating 14. When that reality started to set in later, when they were already at 7 and I was at like 3, that was when you saw it start to balance because they started laying up. If that makes perfect sense. If that makes sense. It makes perfect sense to me. So I think that's where, like, at the beginning, I was like, what are you guys doing still throwing good shots? We've got a lot of donuts down the line. Like, on hole 1, I put it to, like, 25 feet. On hole 2, I was at, like, 15 feet. But I didn't eat a donut on either because Trevor one-upped me, which was great for me. But, yeah. I don't know. It is what it is, though. Hey, someone's got to be the villain. And, I'm glad to be that person. I'm happy to be the person everyone hates. That's okay. It is what it is. Someone's got to be the least favorite. Now, okay, I can talk about this now. So Nate said, why did you announce you were going to do a disc golf reality show in several videos during the summer and then pretend it was a secret for the rest of the summer? So we announced that a disc golf reality series was coming because we had to cast it, right? We were very careful to never say it was imposter, mainly because, as you'll see in today's video, even the cast, when they showed up, didn't know it was imposter. They found out when we were filming, when I walked up over the hill and explained the rules, that you're about to play imposter disc golf. Oh, and you're about to find out which one of you is the imposter because none of you know this yet. So that we had to keep fully under the wraps. We had to reveal we were doing a reality series because we had to cast it. So we had to get the outside people. Our goal, and we ended up lining up with this, is we had 4 creators. So we had Brody, Trevor, and then we had Mikey and Josh from Overthrow as the 4 creators. And then we had 4 cast members from the application. So that ended up being Larkin and Joel, who are completely new to the channel, and then Josh, who's been in a Bogey Bro battle before and is a Patreon subscriber, and then Gary from Debate Night. That's the cast you're going to see tonight. And so it's absolutely electric, and it worked out great. But then we went into secretive mode after we had casted it and stuff for 2 reasons. One, obviously, we didn't want people to know it was imposter, and 2, we also knew that you're marketing to, I don't remember whose quote this is, but you're marketing to a parade, not to a crowd. So people are constantly seeing different parts. So when I'm talking to people this week who aren't going to be here next week, and I'm talking to people next week who weren't here this week, but there is that baseline that's always there, right? And so the baseline that's always there knew we were doing a reality series, but a large majority of people had no idea that we're hyping up something that's coming. They don't know it's coming, because if you missed the 2 or 3, we need a reality series, or you didn't put the pieces together, then you didn't know. And so that was kind of the reason, is we wanted to recreate the hype now that it's here, now that it launches tonight. We wanted to recreate that hype, and we wanted to keep it under wraps because no one knew it was imposter. So that's why we kind of were a little bit public with it, and then brought it back under wraps, and then re-announced it. Because no one knew when it was dropping, and no one knew it was imposter for the reality show series. So that was kind of the strategy or thought process behind being public with it. We need people to, be a part of the cast, bring it back under wraps, and then bring it up, if that makes sense. So, all right, that's going to wrap up this week. Hopefully y'all enjoyed. I will be back next week, Lord willing. I'll be back next week to do this again, talk through probably how the first reality show was accepted, or how it's doing. I'm very excited. I know, obviously, having done all 5 now, recording wise, we haven't seen the final edit yet, obviously, but having seen how it played out, I know this is the best piece of disc golf content we've ever made. I'm worried how it's going to be accepted, because it's different. It's different than what we've typically done. We tried to make it a good mix of a normal foundation video with reality series bits and pieces mixed in, so that if you're not a reality series person, you'll still enjoy it. And I think we did a good job of that formatting wise, but there's always nerves when you do something new. So we can talk about how episode 1 gets received this week. There's 5 episodes, 5 weeks. So this is week 1, and then the finale will be 5 weeks from now. So really excited for that. Well, we were thinking about doing a premiere for the final episode of the finale, so that everyone can kind of watch it together, but we'll see how these first few episodes do. So really excited for that, but appreciate all of y'all tuning in. And make sure 5 p.m. tonight, tune in, main channel, the release of the reality series. We're super, super, super excited for that. We will see you then.